State law requires this body to announce at this time that a copy of the current Open Meetings Act is available in the council chambers on the north wall for public inspection. Simpson.
Here.
Sisson.
Here.
McDermott.
Here.
Gibbons.
Here.
Erbaum.
Here.
Hines.
Here.
Johnson. I see you. And Aldridge.
Here.
All right.
Full council, if we can all stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
to the
of the United States
of
of
America,
America,
States of America,
to the republic for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was about to
Thank you, everybody. Item 1, consent agenda. Approve the agenda, pay the claims as submitted. Approve the city's treasurer's report for March 2020. Approve the minutes of April 7th, 2020 regular council meeting.
So moved.
Aldrich moves. Second by Mike. Mike Sisson.
Oh,
You guys have a rotation here.
okay. Simpson.
Yes.
Sisson.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Erbaum.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
yes,
Aldridge.
Yes.
Motion carried. Public forum. Anybody have anything to bring before the public forum? Ron says he'll wait for the next thing. Thank you, Mr. Tillery. Close the public forum. Item 3, consider proposal for an occupation tax from Phelps County Development Corporation
And the chamber.
and the Holders Chamber of Commerce. Jessica.
How would you like me to do this? Would you like me to come down there
Yeah.
and pull up a chair
Oh, just
near
maybe stand
or stand?
preferably. Try to do that 6 foot thing.
Something I can scoot down a little bit.
Come on down, Ron.
But you'll have to speak loud because your microphone is.
All right, well, we provided a written document for your review in advance. And rather than go through that bullet by bullet, I'm happy to answer questions. Jessica, representing the Chamber of Commerce, is on your screen, and she's able to answer questions as well. But both of our boards have reviewed this. We've had discussions with both executive committees, and with their consent, we've brought this to you for your consideration. Our thought is that we have an opportunity in front of us with the opening of a new hotel and an expanding hotel market to capture revenue that you're authorized to do and invest some of that back into the development of additional hospitality operations in our market. And then also there may be other things that the city would like to invest in with those revenues. We've had conversations with a couple of council members and with you, Mayor, in advance of bringing this to you. So we're anxious to hear your questions and see if there's a way for us to move forward and end up growing this market in terms of a hospitality or convention type destination. Jessica, what am I missing?
I think you hit it all. Hopefully everybody had time to review it, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
So you list, excuse me, you listed out several different tax rates and estimated revenues. What exactly is your preferred rate that you're looking for?
I think we need to land on a rate that is not, that does not put us into an uncompetitive position with our neighbors. Now, Kearney has a relatively low tax asking for both the occupation and the lodging tax, but they've got 1,700 hotel rooms. And it's with the support of the revenues that come from that occupation and lodging tax that they go recruit all of those conventions and meetings and things that happen in the Kearney hospitality community. I think it would be a mistake for us to shoot lower than those other communities. We should probably be in, you know, something comparable to what's happening in our peer communities, not necessarily what they're doing in Kearney. But I wanted you to have that information just so you could see how we stack up.
Which it looks like those other communities are around that 4 to 5% rate.
Yeah,
So,
4 to 5%
yeah, right
for
there.
both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if we stay within that range, you're not going to be out of, you know, balance with the rest of the market.
I see York has the 5%,
Yeah.
but they also have the Holtis Convention Center. They do a lot of conventions. They have a lot of motel rooms.
They do.
And they generate almost as much as the 2% from Kearney. They
Yeah.
generate 442,000.
Yeah. And I think most of that goes to the Holtis Center, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a public-private partnership to build that facility.
Now, you mentioned that this is not only for PCDC and the chamber, but it's for the city too. I mean,
Yeah,
we
well-
can use it for,
PCDC doesn't stand to get any revenue out of this. We're suggesting that some of this revenue be reinvested into market development and that the chamber be the best organization to organize a committee and then build the strategy through that committee for growing this market.
I think this goes right along with the ball fields, when those are done, trying to bring in tournaments and marketing those other things within the city that we have.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really good.
That's the whole idea. We've got an excellent tennis facility here. We've got the city auditorium. We've got some other things that we can market more effectively if we have the resources to do it.
Right.
I see other communities do the occupation tax also on restaurants.
That's true. Omaha, I think, introduced that a year or 2 years ago, maybe longer, I'm not sure. And they, I think, levied a 1.5% on restaurants and bars. That created a lot of pushback, but ultimately it passed. And frankly, after it's in place and there's no, see, this is imposed on a market segment, not on individual businesses. So as long as everybody is treated fairly and the same, there's really no competitive disadvantage. People are not driving out of Omaha to Council Bluffs or some other place because of that 1.5% tax on restaurants and bars.
I'm sorry, did I cut off somebody on Zoom that wanted to talk? Okay. And under this bullet point, under the overview, it says allocated to special uses or applied to the general fund.
So that's a city decision. In our conversations preceding or leading up to this, a number of people thought that the ball fields would be a logical place to invest part of that money.
Parks and Rec.
Which in turn, if we could get that developed and get tournaments and stuff coming, that helps the
That's right.
local,
Puts people in
yeah, the restaurants and the hotels.
heads in beds.
Yeah.
If restaurants and bars were something that you were going to consider, the hotel industry in our community, we think is going to be about a $2 million a year industry, and it will grow over time. But when you add restaurants and bars in there, you're looking at a much bigger universe, probably somewhere between 12 and $14 million a year. So with that, you could impose a lower rate and still raise more money. Or you could have a different rate for the hotels than you have for restaurants and bars.
2% on restaurant bars and 4 or 5% on hotels. The bullet point, not the bottom one, next to the bottom, the committee will direct coordinated recruitment of events and activities to community venues, tennis courts, ball fields.
Right.
How would that work if the city has a park and recs director?
I think they'd coordinate, and maybe the Park and Recs director is the representative that you would want to appoint to that committee. That way you have.
That way there'd be representation from the city on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things they do in Kearney is they're very aggressive in going to the NSAA and bidding on all of those state and district tournaments.
Cross
Those-
country,
they
golf.
And they have a committee that actually handles the volunteer organization that it takes to run those events. It takes dozens, maybe hundreds of people to pull off the cross-country state meet. And people really are engaged that way, and they take ownership of those events and want to make sure they succeed. Same with the Gateway Expo. The chamber has a committee that is dedicated to supporting that particular event. When the chamber or the Visitors Bureau over there tries to secure an event, they've gone after the state volleyball tournament every time it's come up for bid, and so far Lincoln keeps winning it. But they sometimes have to put incentives on the table to encourage that event to look at them. There are hotel discounts. The committee helps coordinate all the hotel lodging and that sort of thing for those sorts of events. And it takes organization and it takes resources for a community to succeed in that arena.
I volunteered for 21 years, but not locally. It was in Lincoln or Omaha where this NSA tournament was.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to get volunteers locally.
I think a lot of people would get really excited about getting more tournament activities here in town. And in it, it's not just sporting events. It could be forensics or debate and theatrical stuff, thespian stuff. So there are a lot of
We have good facility
opportunities.
for that with the dazzle.
Yeah,
Yep.
we do.
But that gets used a lot for, I think, some of the district competition maybe
Right.
or something like that.
And oftentimes those are multi-day events, and so it puts more people in hotel rooms. They go out to eat. They may buy things in the local store. So it just continues to build in the marketplace. And right now, we're going to need to be as vigorous as we can be in pulling business back into town.
Yeah, right now.
Mary, Ben, any comments?
Yeah, I was wondering, you obviously reached out to Cobblestone. Did you reach out to the other hotels and what was their feedback on it?
Yeah, I did reach out to Jesse Wilkeson, who owns the, well, it's R&G Hospitality. They do business as the Roadway Inn. And I had a long conversation with him. He is more cautious in his approach than Cobblestone. Cobblestone has more properties across the nation. They're comfortable with this because they see it every place they have a hotel. Mr. Wilkeson is a single property owner, so he's naturally more cautious and skeptical. He doesn't oppose it. He said that so long as he's not put at a disadvantage, he understands the need for it and would appreciate more business being driven to his hotel. And that's punctuated by his concern that the cobblestone is going to negatively impact his business. I don't believe that's the case. I think there are two different market segments, and I think the cobblestone's actually going to end up pulling more business to town, but that's a natural concern that a business owner will have.
What about bed and breakfasts? Does it impact them the same way?
Yes, any lodging, and this also applies to, you know, RV parks or things like that.
What about like Airbnbs? Does this apply to that, or is that a different market?
I'm not certain about that. I can't answer that
Because
question.
we do have some of those in town.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
In the council chambers, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Really well put together proposal here. I very much like the idea. I'm not opposed to the chamber getting a slice because they do a lot for the community. However, I would be more comfortable if it was 100% administered by the city. That way, you know, that's just less, you're talking about creating yet another board, and that's for the further we get from the tax dollars being controlled by the voters, the more uncomfortable I get. So I'd rather see that instead of 50% city, 50% chamber, that the city retains control of 100% of the proposed occupancy tax, and then doles it out to the chamber on an annual basis like we do for them now, but obviously to a greater degree. And then my other thought on this is, I understand what the surrounding communities are doing. They've had this in place for a while. I'm just not sure this is the right time to raise taxes and take more money out of people's pockets. That's my 2 cents.
I'd be happy to address both of those.
Go for it, Ron.
On the last point, Mary, these are always paid by visitors to your community and not the residents. They're paid by people who are using the hotel rooms. If people aren't using the hotel rooms, there's no loss there, or
No gain for us.
no gain. But also, the tax imposes no resistance or generates no resistance from hotel users because it is such a widely practiced and widely imposed tax.
Right, I understand that it's not coming out of my pocket because I'm not gonna stay in a hotel in Holdridge.
Yeah.
More likely it's coming out of the pocket of someone who's coming to watch their niece get married, or someone who's got a relative in the hospital and they have to come stay in town. I understand that it's not gonna come out of our pockets directly. It's going to come out of the pockets of other Nebraskans that are traveling to Holdridge. And while I do understand that people, you know, when they're booking their hotel rooms, they're only looking at the total cost. They're not looking at, okay, $100 is going to the hotel, another $10 is going to the city. People aren't looking at that, they're looking at the total. But by doing this at this moment in time, we're essentially pushing up the cost of travel at a time when, you know, when unemployment is going up, when fewer people can afford to travel and do things for their families. Even though they're looking at the total price of the hotel room, passing this at this moment, you know, in the position that we're in, is raising the price of travel for Nebraska families. I like it in theory, I don't like it at this moment.
If I could address your other question. Well, I can't remember what it was now. What was it about?
About the taxes going through the
Oh,
city.
yeah. The taxes do always come through the city. They're paid to the state, and then the state returns them on a quarterly basis. So they wouldn't go directly to the chamber.
Right, so
If I could just make that clear, the chamber would engage with the city for in some sort of services agreement, and you would agree on whatever regularity you choose to convey funding to the chamber to perform its services. They'd have to report back to you and show you that they've actually done what you are providing funding to do.
it would be kind
I
of,
understand what you're saying, and I do understand that it would pass through the city directly to the chamber. And I hope you guys know I'm a big fan of the chamber, but I would like to see just a little bit more control retained by the city, and I'd like to address their funding needs on an annual basis like we do now.
and that's kind of how.
So,
we're
Mary, what we're currently doing with the county is something similar, and you'll see in the examples of what we currently have in place. There's a 2% lodging tax that goes towards grants for improvements in the county, and then the other one goes towards the promotion fund. So what happens with that is the visitors committee itself, they receive all of those funds through the county. The county then approves our portion of it to the chamber and sends it over to us for the, technically, I guess, for rent and for us being visitor center and chamber of commerce. So it's not the chamber itself who actually holds the money for the visitors committee. It's the visitors committee that then translates and works with the chamber as well as working with the county to be able to distribute those funds.
So that 16,000 that's listed as an example in the proposal, that goes straight to the visitors committee, right?
I believe it's my understanding that the county has that money, but the visitors committee is the one who is in charge of deciding where it is dispersed.
Okay, so in our situation, you're suggesting that the city retains that 50% that's quote unquote earmarked for the chamber, and then you come to us with specific requests and we grant them as needed.
I think what we had in mind would be the chamber would receive 50% of it, and then we would then allow our committee to make the decision of where that would be spent. We, of course, would understand that, you know, since it is tax money, we would be coming to the city to kind of update everybody on how it's being used, what those funds are being intended for, what projects we have going on. That way we know we're all on the same page of you know, where the funds are being spent.
Which would be similar to what we do
The
with
city
LBA
itself would keep the other 50% for that Parks and Recreation.
Basically.
Got it.
I agree with Mary and what she's saying about, I think the city needs a little more control of that money. It's tax dollars, and I think they need to be doled out by, I think it needs to come from the city back to you guys, but it needs to go through, I think it needs to go through the council first. I mean, the elected officials are responsible to the citizens.
Would it be okay, or would it,
I think there's a way to work it out, Ron.
if they could present a budget and say, this is how we're proposing to allocate these dollars for the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, however.
Their fiscal year or whatever. I mean, there may be things come up during the year that they want to do too.
Yeah.
The chamber does a lot of promotions for the city to bring people here too. So this is kind of down their line also.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get shortchanged on city funds, but I think we ought to, it's very viable. I think we ought to look at it,
Yes.
but I think that maybe we want to table it and maybe look at it in maybe a couple of weeks.
Well, we need to take a little time to give some thought as far as what percentage we're gonna set. It's something I think we need to
If the
consider
cobblestone's
on
gonna
that.
open up here and, you know, not
Yeah.
too distant future, we don't wanna put it off for very long, but I would like to.
Are they still open, shooting for June 1?
They may delay the opening based on when the whole economy opens back up again. I wouldn't be surprised if they delay until July, or mid-July sometime.
Well, we got a little time to think about it.
Well, is this one something we should table and have the admin committee take a look at as far as coming up with a figure for
Oh, sure.
some kind of percentage or whatever?
Yeah,
Well,
this
we can
was
do that.
intended to be a discussion start.
We
Yeah.
can work with whoever. I mean,
Yeah.
there needs to be a little more discussion, I
Yeah.
think, but I think the time has come where we have to implement something like this. I just look at where we're at with the ball fields and a rec director. We know what's coming down gonna hit us head on here, and the city needs some financing help too here, and I think it'd be a win-win for everybody.
Well, on that point, on the ball fields, which is a separate but related issue, you know, the state just announced their city municipal recreation and other grants. There were ball fields that were funded
Yes.
on that, and there was a park in Norfolk funded for over $1 million. And I think Holdridge ought to be in this next round. If there is a requirement for some sort of planning or feasibility study, you know, the horse is already out of the barn, but maybe there's a way we could get that accomplished and apply for the big bucks next spring.
And we need to, Ron. I mean, it's,
What I saw in most of those grants, a study for a library, a study for this, a study for, or rejuvenating the ball fields, not creating.
Well, there are two grants. One that
Yeah,
is for the planning grants, and then
Yeah,
there
there
are
were two different
the
ones.
big grants.
there's money out there. We
Yeah.
just have to get attached to it somehow.
Well, I think we're all pretty much in agreement this needs to be done, but I think we ought to just table it and then work together and try to figure out how to disperse it and everything.
I'm having trouble with my hearing. Was that a motion?
I'll make a motion, yeah.
I thought I heard
I'll
that.
second that to table it.
Seconded by Simpson.
If I could just say one more thing, I know Jessica agrees that we'll be a resource to you. If-
Yes.
No, we gotta get together.
Yeah.
we would be willing to go get a copy of the agreements in other communities. They have memorandums of understanding that
Right.
principles under which they operate. We'd be happy to get that and
Yeah,
provide to you so you
That'll
have.
give us
Give
time
us
for
an
the
idea
next
of
couple
what-
weeks.
yeah.
Yeah,
This needs to be a team effort, so.
Yeah.
If we can get back together on the 5th of May, our next council meeting, and
Have some idea.
Yeah,
of
we
what
need to
we're
have it
doing.
in place by the time this opens.
okay,
yeah,
happy to do that.
Okay.
We'll get that to you.
we have a motion and a second.
Urbach,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Sisson,
Yes.
McDermott. Yes,
Mary?
shake your head. Mary, aye, yes?
Did you not hear me?
I did not, no.
Oh, yes, please table it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Good potential here.
Thank you.
Item 4, consider authorizing authority to bid on the former Southern Power Public Power District's business facility and pool yard. Several of the staff have went and looked at it, east side of Holdridge. We've talked about a different building for the electric, talked about inventory. We talked about replacing the elevator out here for a little over $100,000 for the storage department. It looks like it would be a facility that could very well fit into the scope of our future use. Put it to use immediately. I don't know if any of you, most of you have driven by it, you know what it looks like. You guys have any questions or?
I think it's a good opportunity to expand the facilities for our crews without the major expense of building a new building. If we went to build a new building, I'm sure we'd have over $1 million tied up in it. And I think we'll be able to pick this up at a reasonable price. Plus the elevator in the basement storage, this will be a lot handier as far as for getting freight in and out and safety concerns on that end of it even, so.
Would there have to be much remodeling or redoing on it? I've never been inside it, so I don't know.
The inside of it, the office part of it was flooded last spring, and they knew they were moving, so they didn't fix anything. But a lot of that when we looked at it, we thought a lot of that office space would probably come out anyway, and it's just wallboard that's been put in, so they'd
Well,
probably
we
just
did make
knock
a
it out
deal.
and leave one office for Jason, create the rest in open space.
Brian and Kim went through it also, is that correct?
Brian, and Kim, and I, and Jason all went, and then Brian took his working crew out there the next morning, and then he took his non-working crew, the people who were at home, he called them in, and they all went out and just offered their opinion and make sure that it was something everybody thought would work. And everybody was in agreement that they thought it would work well for them.
You know,
Go ahead, Troy.
Troy?
the other thing about building a new building is where do you put it? That's been a struggle over the years. We just don't have an ideal spot for it. So,
Yeah, we're gonna have to have some property. We have a city yard down there to the south, but big enough? Probably not. We have to purchase property and go from there. Andy?
Was Southern in that building when it flooded? Were they operating out of it?
Yes.
Has it been checked for mold?
Well, they tore all the paper, all the wallpaper and stuff away so that the wallboard would dry, and we looked at it all.
It looked okay.
It's
I
really
just
not
don't
gorgeous.
want us to go crazy bidding on this.
You know, I don't think so.
Yeah.
We are thinking so far, but I don't think that's what we're gonna end up with. They have it valued it, I think, in your thing at $378,000, and I think that's probably fairly close. I'm talking
Yeah.
to an appraiser right now. By state law, the city has to have an appraisal done on it before we can write a check for it. And I found a guy that can get it done by mid-May, and he said he's got another guy that might back out, so he could move it up a little bit. And I talked with Adam Sims, and I think he's fine. We'd have to put earnest money down, but other than that, we wouldn't have to pay for the thing until we have the appraisal done, so I think we're good.
And the other lot on the other side of the tracks is part of the purchase.
They are two separate, but they're gonna actually auction them at the same time. So you're gonna look at people bidding on both pieces of property. And basically, they just leave the bidding open until it gets as high as they think it's gonna get, and they say so.
We aren't interested in the property on south of the tracks.
They
are
would
we?
like to have that as well, if they can work it in, because all the poles will go over there. And there's bunkers for the
Yeah.
poles, and you can drive through.
if we didn't get the bid on the office building, would we still be interested in the pole yard? Or is it, we only want the other if we get the?
Probably not. We did look at the pole yard, of course, one time, and they thought they wanted $200,000 for it, and we said no. But I think you can get it quite a bit less here. And of course, it's an auction, you don't know. They might step in at a huge bid, and we might just walk away, and it's all right. You just don't know.
I think it's past time to get the guys out of the basement. We've been talking about this for the last 20 years.
Do we have a motion to authorize the acting city administrator to bid on the former Southern Power District's property up to the green upon maximum?
I'll make that motion.
Troy Erbach, second by
I'll second.
Jason. Jason Hines.
Hines,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Sisson,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Burbine.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, motion carried. Now time for open discussion. I'll even let the council chime in on this, council. Dane?
Well, you guys probably know, but we had the electric crew was out on Easter Sunday in 50-mile-an-hour winds and ice. And I'd just like to give them another kudos for being out there in aerial trucks in the wind and cold all day long, trying to keep your electricity on. And then in a similar fashion, we had street water and sewer guys all out on a collapsed sewer line over by 14th, and they spent Saturday night into early Sunday morning, and then went back to work on Sunday morning to make sure that it was still up. So the guys have been putting in some overtime, and it's well worth it because they're taking care of some problems.
On that, I see Midlands was there today, getting that taken
Yeah,
care of,
fixed
so.
up.
They were putting the dirt back in tonight, so
Were they? Good.
Collapsed.
collapsed, plugged.
It's the one that was kind of collapsing before that evidently.
It
went
was
the rest of
flowing
the way.
somewhat before,
Yeah.
but when it's backing up in people's basements, our city crew come to the rescue.
And that's all I have.
Thanks, Dane. Chief? Are you on?
The chief?
Mr.
Talking to
Demood?
me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple things. I wanted people to be aware that we had a solicitor in town the other day, and maybe even had a report of one today, but we're not allowing solicitors due to the COVID-19 situation to go door to door. So no permits have been issued, and we won't be issuing any permits for door to door solicitors. If someone comes in and sets up on a corner someplace, I've talked with Dane, and I think both of us feel that's different when people can maybe approach there, keep their distance, and maybe purchase something if it's on a corner. So we will probably issue a permit when that comes around, but we are not issuing solicitors permits going door to door. And one other thing, just today must have been the day for scam callers to hit Holdridge, because we had numerous calls on someone calling and saying they had their social security cards were compromised, or numbers were compromised, and to call a number they would be arrested. I just want citizens to be aware, the IRS scams, the social security scams, those are scams, and please don't fall for it. So people need to be aware of that.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Troy?
Nothing.
Jason?
Nothing.
Randy?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna give a brief update on the baseball committee, what we've accomplished in the last 2 weeks, which we didn't accomplish a lot, but we had a lot of discussion. We found out from Rod that we have 60 days from the bid opening to decide what we want to do with the bids, either take the low bid or reject all the bids. So we still have some time to decide what we're going to do for sure. We had a meeting last week. Dane set it up with the committee and Kim Heinrichs, and she's working on our grant proposals, and she gave us a lot of new information that we should have had a long time ago, but she needs a lot of information from the city, and I think that's going to Kim Parsons and for paperwork and stuff, but she is going to help guide us through the grant process. And she thinks there's a good possibility that we can get a couple pretty good grants, so we're hoping that is the case. I did talk to Bob this afternoon, and he is hoping to be home in a couple days. And we talked about the ball fields, and he said he has some ideas. He said I just need to get home. He thinks we can still work this out. So I'm hoping he gets back and feels well enough to participate somehow, but we've got a lot of work to do, and it's looking like maybe if we work with the contractor that we can lower this bid considerably. possible, just by doing things in a different way and using different materials. So there's just a lot of possibilities out there, and we're working on it. Doug, do you have anything you wanna?
It just
Yeah.
boils down to, it's the money. We need to find some ways to come up with the dollars to pay for it. And we're looking under the couch cushions and everywhere, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can come up with something, whether we can move forward or not, so.
I heard you discussing cutting the mayor's wages, but that's not going to go
That's
very
not gonna
far.
quite do it, but.
If that would help, do it.
We're looking everywhere.
Yeah. But it'd be nice to be able to move forward for it. The
yeah.
reason that if we put it off another year, it's gonna get that much more expensive, so. Just a lot of dollars and we gotta figure out where to get them.
That's all, Mayor.
Doug, you have anything else?
No, that's good for me.
Mike?
I'm good.
Mary?
Thank you.
Larry? Other than that? Oh,
Ben,
excuse me.
Rod,
Thanks for catching me. Ben, don't want
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I wanted to thank the residents and the business owners for staying strong in this hard time. And without those guys and their tax money, PCDC wouldn't have been able to do the magic multiplier, which was a great success, I've heard, and that really helped out a lot of the businesses in town. So thanks to Ron and the PCDC guys for putting that on. That helped out a lot. That was pretty much all I had.
Good point, Ben. Thank you. Rod?
Nothing.
I can't believe it. Kim?
No, Dane covered it.
Hey. Brian?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you, Dane. Appreciate it.
There was electric crew fought the wind and the ice all day long that one day, and kept, the lines were whipping and breaking the cross arms. Brian, you're looking at maybe replacing some of the lines also, is that correct?
Yeah, I met with IES today, and we're getting a game plan to put they call it a T2 conductor. It's two lines twisted together, and it was designed to prevent those lines from bouncing like they did. So we're looking at replacing those cross arms and getting a new conductor in there. And hopefully I could get material here. They said a lot of factories are pretty slow, if not doing anything. So we'll see if I could get some material coming.
Awesome. When the lights started blinking in the wind, I thought, oh, there goes the city guys. Thank you for you guys, for Kim's department, the water and the sewer, getting that plug line open. So that's what we do, provide city essential services. So
Yes, thank you.
the only thing I'd like to bring up, and I want to try to remember to mention it on the radio, I went out to the landfill, and they're getting, a lot of people didn't know that the landfill was open anymore, but they would like the people call ahead, like at least an hour ahead, and schedule. And we'd like to have that revenue yet, but hopefully we can get the recycling center going after this COVID stuff is over. But people are generating more trash, they're home cleaning, so we'd like to have that revenue coming into the landfill also. Nothing else? Did I miss anybody?
No, I'm good.
I have a hard time, and I'm not going around the circle here. Nothing else? I am going to close this meeting. Thank you for all for being in attendance here in Zoom or live. Have a good week.